This is the scale of all knowledge.
Is it really? How do you know? Let's do this. Greetings, fellow space travelers. BionicDance here. Today we've got ourselves a fellow called Atheist Spanker. I doubt he meant that to sound as kinky as I'm gonna quite deliberately take it. Anyway, like so many of his ilk, he seems quite unwilling to accept that maybe, just maybe, there are people out there who genuinely don't believe what he does, and so he's going to make excuses for us about why we say we don't.
This is where man rates. This is where the angels rate. This is where God rates.
Egad, where do Quaaludes rate? My goodness, this guy talks slow. If my audience doesn't mind, I think I may trim out those long pauses. I promise I won't cut anything dishonestly, and, as always, I will link the source video in the description if you desperately need to check up on me.
On the scale of all knowledge, mankind knows much closer to nothing than everything. Therefore, the decision to state that there is no God is one born of emotion rather than logic. It is unsubstantiated, premature, immature, unscientific, and illogical.
If that's the case, then claiming a God does exist is just as illogical and emotion-driven. Allow me to illustrate. We can discard what God and angels allegedly know because what's important is the collective human knowledge. If we're to say that a God does exist, then that knowledge should be contained somewhere within this tiny, closer to nothing than everything little box. It should be something you're able to show, not just talk about. And yet religion demands faith of us, claims that belief without evidence or knowledge is supposed to be a virtue, and if we don't do it, we'll be punished in agony for a really, really long time. If it were anything other than religion, would this not sound like a really horrible con job? Now, I'm not the sort to say there is no God, but I will say that it's extraordinarily unlikely, given how little evidence there is, how many religious claims can be directly contradicted with evidence. If you want me or any other rational atheist to think otherwise, then do it. Point out where in that box our knowledge of God's existence truly lies. Or just admit he's a fantasy.
Therefore, it can be stated with 100% certainty that atheism is nothing more than a temper tantrum being thrown at God.
By that logic, theism can be shown with 100% certainty to be a temper tantrum thrown at the uncaring, heartless, scary universe. The big difference being, of course, that atheism isn't making shit up. Atheists just don't buy your unsubstantiated bullshit. But let's think about this, really. Atheists don't see the direct, unquestionable evidence sitting in that box of human knowledge, and theists are unable to show it to us. We don't think there is a God because of that proof deficiency. So what exactly are we throwing a tantrum about? Do you kick and scream and call it unfair that Thor or Zeus exist? Of course not. You just accept it as ancient legend and move on, right? Well, how is it any different when it's your God that's being seen as a fairy tale? If anybody is throwing a tantrum anywhere near the vicinity of God, it's at his followers, who can't seem to play nicely with the other kids. And that's if anybody is having a tantrum. Frankly, if anybody has their panties in a wad these days, it's the theists who don't much care for gay marriage, trans people in bathrooms, or evolution being taught in school. Though it's been a while since I've heard a fuss about that last one. Videos like Spanker Boys here seem designed less as valid arguments and more as ways of making themselves feel better about a world that isn't quite going their way. Until next time, fellow space travelers, this is BionicDance saying don't run on automatic. Instead, please think.